My dad secretly used my house as collateral for his failed business. He called it sharing responsibility. When I received the foreclosure notice, I took him to court and he ended up where he needed to be. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but I'm at a complete loss and need advice. 2 weeks ago, I received a foreclosure notice for my house, the house my grandmother left me when she passed 3 years ago. The notice claims I'm 6 months behind on a $450,000 business loan I supposedly took out 18 months ago. Here's the thing. I've never taken out any loan on this house. I've never even considered it. Let me provide some background. My name is Michael, I'm 29, and I work as a software engineer. When my grandmother Patricia passed away in 2021, she left me her house in suburban Chicago. It's a beautiful Victorian home worth about $750,000 completely paid off. She raised me after my mother died when I was 7. And this house represents everything she worked for. My father, Robert, 57, was furious when he learned about the inheritance. He expected to get the house himself, despite barely visiting Grandma in her final years. The foreclosure notice arrived via certified mail on a Tuesday afternoon. My hands were shaking as I read it. According to First National Bank, I had taken out a $450,000 business loan in March 2023 using the house as collateral. The loan was supposedly for a restaurant venture called Robert's Table. The monthly payments of $4,800 had never been made, and now they were moving to foreclose. I immediately called the bank. The representative Jennifer pulled up the file and confirmed that yes, the loan was in my name secured by my property at 1847 Oak Street. She said I had personally signed all the documents and provided a power of attorney form authorizing Robert Thompson, my father, to handle the business aspects while I remained the guarantor. That's impossible, I told her. I never signed anything. I've never even been to your bank. Jennifer's tone shifted to something more guarded. Sir, I have copies of all the signed documents right here. Your signature is on every page notarized by Anthony Mills on March 15, 2023. My mind was racing. March 15th. I was in Seattle that entire week for a work conference. I had receipts, plane tickets, hotel bills. There was no way I could have been in Chicago signing loan documents. I need copies of everything I said. Every document, every signature page, everything. She agreed to email them within 24 hours. I spent the rest of that day in a haze calling my lawyer friend Brian for recommendations. He gave me the name of Catherine Walsh, a real estate attorney who specialized in fraud cases. The next morning, the documents arrived. I scrolled through page after page, my stomach sinking with each signature. They looked like mine close enough that I had to look twice. But I knew I hadn't signed them. The power of attorney document was the most disturbing. It gave my father broad authority to make financial decisions regarding the house, execute documents, and manage any business ventures connected to the property. I noticed something else strange. The notary Anthony Mills had an address listed in the same neighborhood where my father lived. A quick Google search revealed no professional listing for him as a notary. Another search showed an Anthony Mills who worked at my father's country club as an assistant golf pro. Catherine Walsh agreed to see me that afternoon. She's a sharp woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. She reviewed the documents while I sat anxiously in her office chair. This is sophisticated forgery, she said finally. Good enough to fool a casual inspection, but there are tells. See how the signature pressure is inconsistent. And this notary seal, it's suspicious. We'll need to verify if Anthony Mills is even a legitimate notary. Can we stop the foreclosure, I asked. We'll file an emergency injunction immediately, she said. But Michael, I need you to understand something. Your father didn't just forge signatures. He created an entire paper trail. The bank has records of him coming in, presenting the POA, discussing the business plan. This was methodical. I felt sick. My own father had done this. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who came to my college graduation, who I still had dinner with once a month despite our complicated relationship. What about the money, I asked. Where did $450,000 go? Catherine pulled up property records on her computer. According to these filings, a restaurant called Robert's Table operated at 4421 West Madison from April 2023 to December 2023. It appears to have closed suddenly. I knew that address. I'd driven past it dozens of times, a failed restaurant space that seemed to have a new tenant every 2 years. How had I not known my father was running a restaurant there? That evening, I confronted my father. I drove to his condo, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. He answered the door with his usual casual smile. Michael wasn't expecting you. Come in. Come in. I stayed in the doorway. We need to talk about the loan, Dad. The one you took out in my name using Grandma's house. His face went through several expressions: surprise, confusion, then a kind of resigned acceptance. You found out. Found out. I got a foreclosure notice. You forged my signature. You committed fraud with Grandma's house. He had the audacity to look offended. That house should have been mine. Patricia was my mother. I'm the one who took care of her. You visited her twice a year. I had a life, Michael, a business to run. Not all of us could drop everything whenever she called. So you decided to steal from me to risk the house she wanted me to have. He walked to his bar and poured himself a scotch. It wasn't stealing. It was an investment. The restaurant was supposed to succeed. I had a solid business plan and excellent chef. The location was perfect. With what experience? You've never run a restaurant in your life. I've been in sales for 30 years. I know how to manage people, how to create an experience. He took a long sip. It would have worked if the chef hadn't quit, if the suppliers hadn't been so unreliable, if the marketing had been better executed. If. I was shaking with anger. You risked everything Grandma worked for on a fantasy, and you did it by committing fraud. I'm pressing charges. His face hardened. You'd send your own father to prison. You'd steal your own mother's house from your son. We stared at each other. This wasn't the man who'd raised me, or maybe it was, and I just never seen this side of him clearly. The house is already in foreclosure, he said finally. Even if you fight it, legal fees will eat you alive. The bank will win. They always do. We'll see about that. I left without another word. The next day, Catherine filed an emergency injunction to stop the foreclosure proceedings along with a fraud complaint. The court granted a temporary stay, giving us time to build our case. That's where I am now. I'm facing the fight of my life to save my grandmother's house, the place where I grew up, where all my good memories live. My father won't return my calls, and I've heard through family that he's telling everyone I'm being vindictive over a misunderstanding. I've spent $5,000 on legal fees already, with Catherine estimating it could reach $30,000 or more if this goes to trial. I'm prepared to pay it. This isn't just about the house anymore. It's about justice. My grandmother worked her entire life for that house. She survived the Depression, raised 2 kids alone after my grandfather died young, and built a legacy she specifically wanted me to have. I'll update as things progress. Right now, I'm gathering every piece of evidence I can find. Plane tickets, hotel receipts, work emails showing I was in Seattle. Catherine has hired a handwriting expert and is investigating the notary. We're also pulling records from the failed restaurant to show where the money went. To anyone reading this, double-check your credit reports. Make sure you know what loans are in your name. And sadly, don't assume family won't betray you for money. I learned that lesson the hard way. Update 1. 2 weeks later, I promised an update. And while I wish I had better news, things have gotten more complicated. Thank you to everyone who messaged with support and advice. Your stories about similar family betrayals, while heartbreaking, made me feel less alone. First, the investigation updates. Catherine's team discovered that Anthony Mills, the notary who supposedly witnessed my signatures, lost his notary license in 2019 for irregularities. In another case, he never renewed it. So every document he notarized for this loan was illegally notarized. You'd think this would be a slam dunk, right? Not quite. The bank's position is that they accepted the documents in good faith. They claim they verified the notary seal, which was fraudulent, but looked authentic and had no reason to doubt the power of attorney. Their lawyer, a shark named David Sterling, is arguing that while they're sympathetic to my situation, they're still owed the money. Here's where it gets worse. Remember my brother James? He's 31, works in commercial real estate, and has always been Dad's golden child. We've had a decent relationship, not close but cordial. He called me last week saying he wanted to meet for coffee to discuss the situation. I heard about the mess with Dad, he said, stirring his latte. It's unfortunate. Unfortunate, like Dad had accidentally broken a vase. He committed fraud, James. He stole from me. I understand you're upset, but Michael, let's be realistic. Fighting this will cost you everything. I've seen these cases. Banks don't lose. I studied his face. James inherited Dad's sharp features and apparently his moral flexibility. What are you suggesting I could help? The house goes to auction. I buy it through my LLC at a discount. You get some money out of it. Better than nothing. I rent it back to you at below market rate until you're ready to move on. You want to buy Grandma's house at a foreclosure auction? I want to help you salvage something from this situation by profiting from Dad's fraud. He leaned back. I'm offering you a lifeline. The house is worth $750,000. At auction, it'll go for maybe $500,000. I'll make sure you get $100,000 cash to start over, plus the rental arrangement. Get out, Michael. Be reasonable, Dash. Get out. He left, but not before sliding a business card across the table. Call me when you're ready to face reality. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about their plan. This wasn't just my father acting alone. They were working together. Dad destroys my credit and forces a foreclosure. James swoops in to buy the property cheap. They probably figured I'd be so grateful for James's help that I wouldn't see the con. Catherine was furious when I told her. This establishes conspiracy. If we can prove they planned this together, it's criminal fraud, not just civil. We've been digging into their communications. Catherine subpoenaed phone records and found dozens of calls between Dad and James in the months before the loan was taken out. She also discovered that James's LLC Thompson Real Estate Holdings was formed just 2 weeks before Dad opened the restaurant. The smoking gun came from an unexpected source. My cousin Sarah, who works at the country club where Anthony Mills was employed, overheard him bragging at the bar about making easy money helping members with paperwork. She recorded him on her phone admitting he'd notarized documents without verifying identity for a $5,000 fee. We took this to the police. Forgery, fraud, conspiracy. Suddenly, this wasn't just a civil matter. Detective Patricia Gonzalez was assigned to the case. She's thorough, methodical, and seems genuinely outraged by what happened. Family fraud cases are the worst, she told me. The violation of trust makes everything harder. They arrested Anthony Mills first. Facing serious jail time, he flipped immediately. He admitted my father paid him to falsely notarize the documents, said my father had come to him with everything already signed. He also revealed something shocking. This wasn't the first time. He'd done similar work for my father before, though he claimed not to know the details. The detective is building cases against both my father and James. The challenge is proving James's involvement beyond the circumstantial evidence. They need something concrete showing prior knowledge of the fraud. Meanwhile, the civil case continues. The bank, realizing their notary verification process failed spectacularly, has become slightly more flexible. They're now willing to discuss a settlement, though their initial offer was insulting. They'd forgive the debt if I paid them $200,000 and gave up any right to sue them for their negligence. Catherine laughed when she heard that. They're scared. They know they screwed up. We counter with them forgiving the debt, paying our legal fees, and a $50,000 settlement for the damage to your credit. While she negotiates, I've been dealing with the emotional fallout. I haven't spoken to my father since our confrontation. James has called multiple times, leaving messages that alternate between concerned brother and aggressive businessman. My stepmother Linda called crying, begging me not to press charges. He made a mistake, she sobbed. But he's your father. He planned this for months, Linda. He forged documents, paid off a notary, stole hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not a mistake. That's a crime spree. She hung up on me. The family is splitting. Some relatives think I'm overreacting, that I should handle this privately. Others are appalled and have shared their own stories of my father's questionable ethics over the years. Apparently, Grandma wasn't the only relative he felt owed him. Aunt Carol told me something that broke my heart. Patricia knew exactly what she was doing leaving the house to you. She told me Robert would sell it within a year and waste the money. Michael will preserve what I built. She was right. Dad didn't even wait a year. He just tried to steal it instead. Next week, the criminal case goes before a grand jury. If they indict my father and brother, could face serious prison time. Part of me feels guilty. They're still family. But then I think about them sitting together planning this betrayal, calculating how to steal my grandmother's legacy. I've started therapy to deal with all of this. Dr. Martinez specializes in family trauma and financial abuse. She's helping me understand that protecting myself isn't betrayal. The betrayal already happened, and it wasn't from me. You're not responsible for the consequences of their actions. She told me they made choices. Those choices have results. You're simply refusing to enable them by staying silent. The house remains in legal limbo. I still live here, surrounded by memories. Grandma's garden is blooming. The roses she planted 20 years ago are magnificent this year. I spend evenings on the porch where she taught me to read, thinking about how she'd handle this. She was tough. My grandma, Depression-era tough. She'd have fought tooth and nail for what was hers. So that's what I'm doing. I'll update again after the grand jury decision. Thank you all for your support. To those who shared similar stories, I'm sorry you went through this too. Family should mean safety, trust, love. When it doesn't, it's okay to protect yourself. And to those saying I should forgive and forget, I'll consider forgiveness when they show genuine remorse, but forgetting, never. Some lessons are too expensive to forget. Update 2. 6 weeks later. The last 6 weeks have been a whirlwind. The grand jury returned indictments against my father James and Anthony Mills. The charges include conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, identity theft, and multiple counts of falsifying business records. Seeing their names on actual criminal indictments made everything painfully real. The arrests happened on a Thursday morning. Detective Gonzalez called to give me a heads up. We're executing warrants within the hour. Thought you should know. I sat in my living room, Grandma's living room, and waited. Around 10 a.m., my phone exploded. Cousins, aunts, family friends all calling or texting variations of, "Did you really have your father arrested?" And James is in handcuffs at his office. Yes, they arrested James at his real estate firm in front of his colleagues and clients. Dad was arrested at home. Both were processed, fingerprinted, and held until their arraignment that afternoon. They made bail $50,000 each with conditions including surrendering their passports and no contact with me or witnesses. The family explosion was immediate and brutal. My phone rang nonstop until I turned it off. Emails poured in. Facebook became a war zone of relatives taking sides. My stepmother Linda publicly posted that I was destroying the family over money and tagged every relative she could think of. But something unexpected happened. People started coming forward with their own stories about my father. Uncle Charles called from Arizona. Robert borrowed $30,000 from me in 2018 for a sure thing investment. Never saw a dime back. I stayed quiet to keep the peace. My second cousin Rachel, he convinced my mom to invest a retirement in some scheme in 2015. Lost everything. We couldn't prove fraud, but we knew. Story after story emerged. My father had been running various schemes for years, always targeting family, always with elaborate explanations for why things went wrong. The family had been enabling him, covering for him, making excuses. My grandmother knew. That's why she protected her assets so carefully, why she left the house to me with ironclad provisions. Catherine used this pattern of behavior in our civil case against the bank. This establishes that proper due diligence would have revealed Robert Thompson's history of fraud. The bank failed in their fiduciary duty. The bank blinked first. They offered to forgive the entire debt, clear my credit, and pay $30,000 in damages. Catherine pushed for more, eventually settling on debt forgiveness, credit repair, $45,000 in damages, and full legal fee reimbursement. I signed last week. The house is safe, but the criminal case is just beginning. The prosecution offered plea deals. 18 months for Anthony Mills, who took it immediately. 3 to 5 years for my father. 2 to 3 years for James. They both refused, convinced they can beat the charges at trial. Their defense strategy became clear during a preliminary hearing. They're claiming I gave verbal permission for the loan, that the power of attorney was real, but misplaced, and that the restaurant failure was just bad business luck, not fraud. They've hired expensive lawyers. God knows how they're paying for them. The prosecutor assistant D.A. Michelle Roberts warned me this would get ugly. They're going to attack your character, claim you're vindictive, say you promised them the house. Be prepared. She was right. Their lawyers filed motions claiming I had a gambling problem. False. That I promised to invest in a restaurant never happened, and that I was retaliating because they tried to intervene in my lifestyle choices, apparently referring to my relationship with my ex-boyfriend David, which my father never approved of. Then came the real shock. During discovery, we learned about James's full involvement. He wasn't just planning to buy the house at auction. He'd been in from the beginning. Email evidence showed he'd researched foreclosure laws, helped structure the loan to maximize their take, and even scouted backup properties in case I somehow saved the house. One email from James to Dad read, "If Michael fights it, we go to Plan B. Either way, we get what should have been ours." What should have been ours? As if my grandmother's choice meant nothing. The trial is set for September. In the meantime, I've been rebuilding my life. I changed all my locks, installed security cameras, and got a restraining order after James was caught driving slowly past the house multiple times. I've also been going through Grandma's things more carefully. I found a letter she'd written, but never sent, dated a year before her death. "My dear Michael, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably dealing with your father's reaction to my will. I know he'll be angry. He always expected to inherit everything despite barely being a son to me these last years. I'm leaving you the house because you loved it like I did. You see its history, its value beyond money. Your father would see only dollar signs. James is too much like him. Be strong. They may try to take it from you. Don't let them. This house is my legacy to the grandchild who brought me joy, who spent summers in my garden, who called every Sunday even from college. Fight for what's yours. I'll be watching. All my love, Grandma Patricia." She knew. She knew they'd try something. I also discovered that Grandma had been documenting things. a notebook filled with dates and details. Robert asked for $50,000 today, claimed it was for emergency medical bills, found out later he bought a boat, entry after entry of lies, schemes, manipulations. I gave it all to the prosecutor. Michelle Roberts actually smiled. Your grandmother was building a case from beyond the grave. This establishes pattern of behavior going back decades. The notebook has become key evidence. My father's lawyer tried to get it excluded, calling it hearsay and prejudicial. The judge disagreed, ruling it admissible as evidence of pattern and practice. The personal cost has been enormous. I've lost relationships with relatives who think I've gone too far. My stepmother filed for divorce after learning about the other schemes. Some cousins won't speak to me, but others have grown closer, finally free to speak truth about my father. My therapist has helped me process the grief. You're not just grieving the crime, Dr. Martinez explained. You're grieving the father you thought you had, the brother you wanted, the family you deserved. She's right. The hardest part isn't the fraud or the theft or even the betrayal. It's accepting that the father who taught me to ride a bike, who read me bedtime stories, who I loved, despite our complications, that man either never existed or disappeared long ago. But I've also found strength I didn't know I had. Grandma's strength. Maybe the house is more than safe now. It's fortified. I've updated the security, done long overdue maintenance, and started restoring her garden to its former glory. This spring, I'll plant new roses next to hers. I've also started a support group for family fraud victims. We meet monthly at the community center. There are more of us than you'd think. Children, siblings, spouses, all betrayed by people who should have protected them. We share stories, resources, and the unique pain of prosecuting someone you once loved. The group has taught me I'm not alone. Every story is different, but the same. Trust, exploited love, weaponized family bonds turned into chains, but also survival, justice, freedom from toxic patterns. As I write this, I'm sitting on Grandma's porch. The criminal trial starts in 2 months. I'll have to testify, face them in court, detail every lie under oath. I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm not afraid anymore. They made their choices. Now come the consequences. I'll update after the trial. Thank you to everyone who's followed this story, offered support, shared their own experiences. You've helped more than you know. To those still trapped in toxic family situations, you deserve better. It's okay to protect yourself. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to bleed you dry. And to my father and James, if you're reading this, Grandma was right about you. But she was right about me too. I'm stronger than you thought. Final update 4 months later. I've started and stopped writing this update dozens of times. How do you summarize 4 months that changed everything? But I promised to let you all know how it ended. So here goes. The trial was set for September 15th. The prosecution spent weeks preparing me to testify. Michelle Roberts, the ADA, ran through every possible question, every attack the defense might make. They're going to try to break you on cross-examination, she warned. Stay calm, stick to facts. Don't let them bait you into anger. 2 weeks before trial, James cracked. His lawyer contacted the prosecution about a plea deal. Apparently, the weight of evidence, especially Grandma's notebook and his own emails, made conviction virtually certain. He was looking at real prison time, and his real estate license was already suspended pending the trial outcome. The deal. James would plead guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud, serve 18 months in minimum security pay, $100,000 in restitution, and testify against our father. Take it, Michelle advised. His testimony will bury your father's defense. I agreed, not for vengeance but for truth. And honestly, 18 months seemed fair. Enough to mark the seriousness of what he'd done, not enough to destroy his entire life. My father exploded when he learned about the deal. His lawyer withdrew from the case after my father accused him of sabotaging the defense. The new lawyer, a courthouse regular known for taking hopeless cases, immediately asked for a postponement. Denied. September 15th came too fast and too slow. I wore Grandma's favorite tie clip, a small silver rose she'd given me for my college graduation. The courtroom was packed. Family on both sides, local media, financial fraud by a prominent businessman made headlines, and curious court watchers filled every seat. Seeing my father at the defense table was surreal. He'd lost weight, aged years and months. He caught my eye once and mouthed something I couldn't understand or didn't want to. The prosecution's case was methodical. Michelle Roberts laid out the conspiracy piece by piece. The planning, the forged documents, the fake notary, the systematic deception of the bank, the attempted cover-up. Anthony Mills testified first, detailing how my father approached him, paid him coached him on what to say if questioned. Then came the documents expert who confirmed the signatures were forged, the bank officials who admitted they'd failed in due diligence, the forensic accountant who traced where the $450,000 went. Spoiler: very little went to the actual restaurant. My testimony took 2 days. Michelle walked me through discovering the foreclosure, finding the forged documents, confronting my father. I stayed calm, factual, even when describing the emotional devastation of realizing your father had betrayed you so completely. Cross-examination was brutal. My father's lawyer, Gregory Coleman, attacked everything. My relationship with my grandmother, implying I'd manipulated her. My sexuality, suggesting I'd hidden it from her. My career, claiming I made enough money to help my father, but chose not to. My character, painting me as vindictive and greedy. Isn't it true you promised your father you'd invest in his business ventures? No. Isn't it true you told him the house was family property that should benefit everyone? No. Isn't it true you're pursuing this case to punish your father for not accepting your lifestyle? No. I'm pursuing this case because he committed fraud, on and on for hours, but I held firm. Stick to the facts, don't let them bait you. The turning point was James's testimony. My brother, looking defeated in his plea deal suit, detailed everything. How Dad had approached him with the plan, how they'd researched foreclosure laws to maximize their take, how they'd identified Anthony Mills as someone who could be bought, how they'd planned to split the profits from flipping the house. Whose idea was it to target Michael specifically? Michelle asked. Dad's. He said Michael didn't deserve the house, that Grandma had been confused when she made her will. He said we were just taking what was rightfully ours. My father's face during James's testimony was something I'll never forget. Rage, betrayal, disbelief, cycling across his features. At one point, he tried to stand up and had to be restrained by the bailiff. The defense's case was thin. They called character witnesses who testified about my father's business acumen and community involvement. They tried to paint the restaurant failure as bad luck rather than fraud. They suggested I'd given verbal permission for everything and was now lying for revenge. My father testified on his own behalf against his lawyer's advice. It was a disaster. He contradicted himself multiple times, claimed documents were misunderstandings, insisted he'd intended to pay back the loan despite never making a single payment. When confronted with Grandma's notebook documenting his decades of schemes, he actually said Mother always exaggerated. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. At sentencing 3 weeks later, I gave a victim impact statement. I'd written dozens of versions ranging from rage-filled to heartbroken. In the end, I kept it simple. Robert Thompson was my father. He taught me to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked me down the aisle at graduation when Mom couldn't be there. That man was either real once or never existed at all. Either way, he's gone. The man who stole from me, who forged documents, who plotted with my brother to take my grandmother's legacy, I don't know him, but he made choices. Those choices destroyed our family, violated sacred trusts, and caused immeasurable pain. I don't ask for maximum punishment out of vengeance. I ask for appropriate consequences so he can't do this to anyone else. My grandmother documented victim after victim over decades. It stops now. I hope someday he understands the magnitude of what he's done. I hope he finds remorse. I hope he becomes the man I once believed him to be. But hope doesn't erase harm. Justice requires accountability. Your Honor. My grandmother, Patricia Thompson, worked her entire life to build something lasting. She chose to leave her legacy to me, trusting I'd protect it. Thanks to the justice system, I've been able to keep that promise. Please ensure my father faces appropriate consequences for trying to steal it. The judge sentenced him to 6 years in state prison with possibility of parole after 4. She cited the sophistication of the fraud, the violation of family trust, and his complete lack of remorse as factors. My father shouted something about appeals as they led him away. I didn't turn around. The aftermath has been complex. Some family relationships are forever broken. Others have surprisingly strengthened. Cousins I barely knew have reached out, sharing how my standing up to him gave them courage to address their own toxic family dynamics. My stepmother Linda divorced him and actually apologized to me. She discovered he'd been hiding money from her too, had secret debts, had been living a financial double life throughout their marriage. She's in therapy now, rebuilding her life. James served 8 months before being released to house arrest and community service. He wrote me a letter, a real handwritten letter, taking full responsibility and asking for nothing. I haven't responded yet. Maybe someday. The betrayal from him hurts differently than Dad's. He was supposed to be my brother. The house is fully legally, irreversibly mine now. I finished the restoration projects Grandma had planned. Her garden is magnificent. The new roses I planted bloom next to her old ones. I host Sunday dinners for the cousins who stood by me. We're building new family traditions on the foundation of the old. The support group for family fraud victims has grown. We've helped 12 people navigate similar situations this year. Turns out when you speak truth about family financial abuse, others find courage to do the same. We're planning to establish a legal aid fund next year. I still live in Grandma's house. Some people ask if it feels tainted now associated with so much pain, but it doesn't. If anything, it feels more precious. I fought for it. I protected it. I kept my promise to her. On quiet evenings, I sit on the porch where she taught me to read. Sometimes I talk to her, tell her about the trial, the victory, the losses along the way. I tell her about the Thanksgiving where half the family didn't come, but the half that did felt more like family than ever. I tell her about finally understanding why she documented everything. Not from bitterness, but from wisdom. She knew this day might come. She prepared me for it without my realizing. Every story about surviving the depression, every lesson about standing up for yourself, every quiet moment of showing me what real strength looked like. She was building my foundation for this fight. The money from the bank settlement went into a trust for the legal aid fund. I don't want a penny from this whole mess. What I wanted, what I fought for, was justice and the preservation of her legacy. I got both. To everyone who followed this story, thank you. Your support, your own stories, your encouragement to stay strong, it all mattered. The comments saying I'd regret prosecuting family were wrong. I regret that it was necessary, but not that I did it. To those facing similar situations, document everything. Get a good lawyer. Don't let family be an excuse for abuse. Blood relation doesn't grant anyone the right to steal from you, lie to you, or betray your trust. You deserve better. And to those who say I should forgive and reconnect, forgiveness isn't absolution. I'm working on forgiving for my own peace. But reconnecting? No. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. My father showed me he values money over family schemes, over relationships, himself over everyone else. I believe him. This is my final update. The legal battles are over. The criminal has been prosecuted. The house is safe. The family that matters has rallied around truth instead of enabling lies. I'm 30 now. I own a beautiful Victorian house, free and clear. I have a job I love, friends who support me, and family members who chose integrity over complicity. I have scars from this battle, but I also have strength I never knew existed. Grandma was right, I preserved what she built, not just the house but the values it represents. Hard work, honesty, protecting what matters, standing up to bullies even when they share your DNA. Especially then. Thank you all for being part of this journey. May your own families treat you with the love and respect you deserve. And if they don't, may you find the strength to protect yourself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply refusing to let toxic people destroy what you've built. It's living well in the house they tried to steal. It's Sunday dinners with chosen family. It's roses blooming in a grandmother's garden tended by hands that fought to keep them. Take care, everyone. I'm going to go sit on my porch now in my grandmother's house and watch the sunset. We won.